This story was shared by a fisherman, an ex-fisherman to be exact. I'll share it in his own words, and you'll soon understand why he is an ex-fisherman after hearing the whole incident. All right, let's dive in. My name is Jack. I am from a province village where everyone's life revolves around fishing. We have a large river near our village, and many of the villagers depend on it for their livelihood. My father was one of them. We were a family of four: me, my father, my mother, and my younger sister. Our family was completely dependent on my father's income. He would work during the day and go fishing at night. We owned a small fishing boat and some nets that my father used to catch fish in the nearby river. His daytime work wasn't enough to cover our living expenses and my school studies, which is why he went fishing at night. I was a 17-year-old teenager, focused mostly on my studies, but I often went fishing with my father at night. Because of that, I knew my way around the river and how to catch fish. Our family wasn't doing great financially, but we were happy. Until that one night. Like every day, my father went out for fishing, but I didn't go with him that night. My mom stayed up waiting for him all night, but he never returned. That had never happened before. My father usually came home by 3 a.m., but that night he didn't return. The next morning, we went looking for him near the river. That's when we saw his boat, floating silently in the middle of the water. But there was no sign of my father. I brought the boat back home, hoping he would return soon. Days passed, but there was still no trace of him. We filed a missing persons report with the police, but it was no use. Things couldn't go on like that forever. I quit school and started fishing, just like my father. I needed to support my family, but there was another reason too. I wanted to find out what really happened to my father. My mother didn't want me to go near the river again. She had already lost my father to it, and she feared she might lose me too. But I continued to go anyway. For the first 3 nights, everything seemed normal. But on the 4th night, something happened. Something that terrified me to the core, yet also gave me a small ray of hope. I had already spread my net in the river and was sitting quietly, waiting for fish to get caught. My eyes were fixed on the dark water when suddenly I saw it, a glowing light rising from beneath the surface. It was coming from the bottom of the river. I leaned forward to get a closer look, and what I saw next froze my blood. I saw my father's face emerging from the depths. His face was pale and lifeless. I panicked and fell backward onto the boat. I didn't expect to see my father like that. He looked terrifying. When I looked again, his face was gone. But the strange white light was still glowing under the water. It wasn't the reflection of the moon. There was no moon that night. I saw it clearly then, a giant fish. Nothing like any fish I'd ever seen before. Its scales shimmered in different colors, and its size was massive, almost like a shark. The light was coming from something on its head, something that looked like a glowing stone, and beside that fish floated my father's body. I was paralyzed with fear. My heart pounded violently. I couldn't take it anymore. I started the engine and sped straight home. I told my mother everything, but she didn't believe me. She said, "There's no such fish in existence. You're just thinking too much about your father. That's why you're imagining him in the water." But I knew what I saw. And then a thought struck me. What if that fish was responsible for my father's disappearance? What if that fish had killed him? My fear quickly turned into anger. I wanted revenge at any cost. But that decision is something I regret for the rest of my life. I kept going to the river, pretending to fish, but my real goal was to find that glowing fish again. I took a large, sharp spear with me. For 2 nights, nothing happened. Then, on the 3rd night, I found myself near the riverbank. That's when I noticed 2 women standing by the shore, waving their hands at me. They were calling me. I could see them under the faint moonlight. I thought they probably needed to cross the river and wanted to hire me. At first, I ignored them. I was there for revenge, not to ferry passengers. But then I realized there were no other boats around, and it was quite late at night. Two young women out there alone, it didn't seem right to leave them stranded. So I decided to help. I went near them and told them to get on the boat. They didn't say a word, they just stepped in. But strangely, the boat didn't shake at all. Normally, when someone gets on, the boat moves slightly. I didn't think much of it then. Their faces were covered with long sleeves and I couldn't see them clearly. There were only two of them, yet my engine made a loud, heavy noise, like I was carrying much more weight than usual. My boat could carry 6 or 7 people easily, so this was strange. Still, I didn't pay much attention. I tried asking them questions. Where are you coming from? Why this late? Where are you heading? But they said nothing. Not a single word. It started to annoy me. When we finally reached the other side, the two women got off silently and started walking straight ahead. I called out, "Hey, where's my money? Don't leave without paying me." But they kept walking, fast. I didn't get off the boat to chase them. I just muttered to myself, that's why we shouldn't help people. This is how they repay kindness. I was about to leave when I noticed one of the women was walking back toward me. I shouted again, "Hey, where's my money?" She stopped about 4 or 5 meters away from me, and then, from where she stood, she stretched out her hand to give me the money. But her arm kept stretching. Her hand was coming closer and closer while her body didn't move an inch. At that moment, I realized exactly what I had just carried across the river. I froze in fear, then immediately turned on the engine, spun the boat around, and sped off as fast as I could. Behind me, that thing was laughing, shouting, "Aren't you going to take your money? Take it! Take your money!" I didn't look back. I went straight home and didn't say a word to my mother that night. But the next day, I returned to the river again, still determined to find that glowing fish. I waited for hours, staring at the water. Then suddenly, the same light appeared again beneath the surface. This time, I was ready. I gripped my spear tightly. When the fish surfaced, I threw the spear with all my strength. It hit the fish right in the body. The river immediately became unstable. Waves rose and crashed violently. The fish made a horrifying screeching sound, something not of this world. The water turned red with its blood. I was terrified, but after a few moments, everything stopped. The river went completely still again. The fish had disappeared, still carrying the spear in its body. I went home and told my mother what happened, but again, she didn't believe me. The following day, I went to the river once more, but there was no sign of the fish anywhere. The current carried my boat toward the same side of the river where I had dropped off those two strange women earlier. I wasn't paying much attention to the land at first, still watching the water, when I suddenly noticed two figures dragging something out of the river. It was dark, and I couldn't see them clearly. As I moved closer, the two figures turned toward me, then looked at each other and suddenly ran away. Confused, I went to the spot they had been standing. What I saw there left me speechless. It was the fish. The spear was still lodged in its body. Half of its body lay on the shore, the other half still in the water. It was weak, barely moving. Those two people must have been trying to pull it fully onto land. I decided to do the same. After all, I wanted to take my revenge completely. As I dragged the fish up, two long hands suddenly shot up from the water and grabbed its head, trying to pull it back down. I should have been terrified, but all I could think about was not letting the fish escape. I grabbed its tail tightly and pulled with all my strength. The hands were unnaturally long. It was clear this was something not human. Those hands tore off part of the fish's head and mouth, causing it to bleed heavily. I could see pain and sadness in the fish's eyes. After a few moments, it stopped moving. It was dead. I wanted to take it home to show everyone what I had found, but before I could, the river began raging again. The wind howled, the waves grew wild, and my boat rocked violently. I held on as tightly as I could, but in the chaos, the fish's body slipped off and sank back into the water. I noticed something else too. The glowing stone on its head was gone. After the fish disappeared, everything went silent again. I didn't stay a second longer. I rushed home without telling my mother a single thing. That night I had a dream. An old man appeared before me, his hair long and messy, his beard unkempt, and his eyes glowing red with fury. He shouted, "What have you done? Do you know what a great sin you've committed?" He continued, "The real killers of your father were those two women you ferried across the river. How they were ghouls, creatures that feed on fish. They asked your father for fish, but when he refused, they killed him and buried his body deep beneath the river. The fish you killed was the guardian of that part of the river. It protected the waters from supernatural beings. That night, it couldn't save your father because it had gone to patrol another area. That's why it showed itself to you, to warn you, to help you understand what happened to your father. But instead, you attacked it. Those ghouls couldn't enter the water while the guardian lived. You carried them to the other side, to the one place where the guardian's power was weak. You unknowingly helped them escape. When the guardian went there later, wounded with your spear still in its body, the ghouls took their chance and finished it off. The people you saw dragging the fish were those very ghouls. Now that the guardian is dead, who will protect the river?" When I woke up, I realized the terrible mistake I had made. I regretted my actions deeply. From that day on, I never went near the river again. The Tar Lady of Three Bridges Road. I've only told about 5 people this story, but tonight, I want to share it with others who might understand. Everything happened back in 2016 and 2017 in central Georgia, about 45 minutes from Macon. I've always been fascinated by the paranormal. Ever since I was a kid, I've had strange experiences. So one night, while hanging out with some friends, the topic came up. Most of them didn't believe in ghosts. To prove a point, I suggested we visit a place that was said to be haunted. There's a local legend about a road known as Three Bridges Road, though it actually has 5 bridges. Locals say strange things happen there, especially near an old church that sits right beside it. We got there around 1 in the morning. The air felt heavy. It was dead quiet, just the sound of crickets and the faint rush of water under the bridge. We stayed for a couple of hours, hearing distant knocks and strange rustling in the woods. One of my friends swore he saw a woman near the bridge, but the rest of us didn't see a thing. Then we went to the church. It was small, with blacked-out windows, no steeple, and a graveyard beside it with stones dating back to the 1700s. The closer we got, the worse the feeling became, like something was warning us to leave. After a while, we did. We went back to my buddy Gunther's camper and called it a night. A few days later, Gunther told me he'd been seeing something. He called it the Tar Lady, said she'd been following him ever since that night. Trying to help, I decided to cleanse his camper. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just kept repeating, "Any negative energy, I command you to leave. You are not welcome here." After a few minutes, the air got thick, hard to breathe. The lights flickered. I felt a heavy weight press down on my shoulders like I was carrying a 100-pound bag. Gunther stared at me, pale as chalk, and said there were things in the room, pointing at me, laughing. I didn't see them, but I felt them. The pressure got stronger and stronger until I ran outside and threw up. Gunther said there were dark circles under my eyes like I hadn't slept in days. The next day, I felt fine again. So we called another friend, Rick. He's pagan and knows a lot about the occult. We took him to the same church. Rick walked around quietly for a minute, then said, "This isn't hallowed ground." He told us a church should be blessed, especially one with a graveyard. But this one wasn't. He said it felt corrupted, like it had been used for something else. That night, Rick offered to help Gunther. They went back to the camper alone. The next morning, Gunther said he felt better. He said Rick gave him a demon lord to protect him. Apparently, Rick had a contract with it. I didn't believe him until I saw the changes. Gunther started speaking differently. He was calm, articulate, almost elegant. but the way he spoke about himself was strange. He didn't say I, he said Gunther. I tested it. I asked the thing inside him to prove it was real. It told me about a traumatic memory from my childhood, something no one else knew, something I'd buried deep. Hearing that made me furious. My friends had to hold me back while that thing inside Gunther just smiled. Weeks passed. Then came the night everything changed. We were helping a friend, Tiffany. She believed something dark was attached to her. We lit 2 candles and began to pray. Almost instantly she screamed, her body arching back in pain. Gunther, or whatever was inside him, started chanting softly, eyes closed. When I finished helping Tiffany, I turned my prayer toward Gunther. I wanted to drive that thing out. The second I did, his eyes snapped open. His face twisted with hatred. He looked right at me and said, "Don't mess with me." Then he grabbed both candles and blew them out at the same time. That was the last night I saw him. He moved away soon after. Rick disappeared too. No one's heard from either of them since. Sometimes when I drive past Three Bridges Road, I slow down near that church. The trees around it never seem to move, even when the wind's blowing. And once, just once, I thought I saw something black, like thick tar, slip into the woods. I've witnessed a lot of strange things in my life, but that night was the first time I realized evil can wear a human face. Before we end this video, I've got something to tell you. If you've ever faced something unexplainable, something that still haunts you to this day, write down your story and send it to me through the email in the description. I gather these encounters from people, websites, and the darkest corners of the internet. Until the next horror, stay safe if you can.